Okay, I'll make that a couple minutes past, so I think we'll get started. If we've got any late arrivals, we'll admit them as they come. Firstly, welcome to our May Virtual Insight event. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Adam Butler from Phocas, who's going to be going through a little bit of information, a little bit of a demonstration for us this morning. So without much further ado, we're going to pass straight over to Adam. The one thing that I will stress, if you've got any questions and that need answering, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A functionality within the Microsoft Teams webinar meeting this morning. And as I said, without any further ado, Adam, over to you. We'll let you introduce yourself and lead us on this morning.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Michael, for the introduction. Hello, everybody who's on the webinar today. Hello to people that are going to be seeing this recorded back. I'm here really today just to take you through, effectively, as you can see on the screen, Innov8 Virtual Insights. I am Adam Butler. I'm the account executive here at Phocas. I work very closely with Innov8. We are Phocas, are a Sage Tech partner. I'll go into a little bit about Phocas, but over sort of the next 45 minutes to an hour, I'm just going to give you some insights around what we typically see. And then again, as Michael said, if there's any questions that pop up throughout any of the information that I'm covering today, then please feel free either to pop them in the chat or follow up directly with either of us after the webinar. So I mean, Phocas, we are all about supporting businesses of all sizes. We're all about backing your business to connect and understand and plan better together. We have a very human-friendly business approach towards analytics, and everything that I will cover within the presentation, the underlying theme is about helping you feel good about data, regardless of what data you're looking to interpret. So Phocas at a glance. Phocas is a global business. It was originally started 23 years ago by our founder and still acting CEO, Miles Glacier. We are based all over the globe. So we've got offices in Coventry, in the US, in New Zealand and Australia. We have 3,000 customers globally, over 150 Sage customers also. We are B Corp certified, so we do place a lot of emphasis on our environmental impact, and also we're always doing things to make sure that we are effectively carbon offsetting ourselves. We score really highly on customer retention because the way that the product works, and hopefully this will come across as when I go into the demonstration side of things, is everything is aimed at making things very easy to get to the end point, the answers to the questions that you ask with data. We've got various integrations. We've spent our last 23 years in existence connecting to all the major ERPs out there so that fundamentally we can provide a lot of solutions. So we've got some great, fantastic solutions within the Sage space, and I'll cover a little bit of that as we go through. So as I said, our aim is to make our customers feel good about data. The Feel Good Business Planning and Analytics platform is what we're known as. We have a broad range of products within our portfolio, but the key standout products within our portfolio revolve around analytics, financial statements, budgeting and forecasting, and rebate analysis. Today, I'm going to really showcase a little bit around the analytics, a little bit on financial statements, and if we've got time, I'll cover a little bit on budgeting and forecasting. But the crux of everything we do is very centralized, so it is one product that houses all of these solutions together. So it makes it really easy to collaborate across the team and the business. So myself, I've been with Phocas now 3 years. I've worked with over 200 Sage businesses of all sizes, shapes, industries and verticals. But there is kind of one key theme that I tend to typically hear when I'm speaking to various businesses, and it's around these kind of 4 pillars. So being, regardless of the version of Sage that they're operating, the challenges seem to be fairly similar. So it could be around not having the full visibility of business data. So that could be anything from just having to rely on just the ERP data reporting. It could be, there might be additional streams of data that work and coincide with the Sage data. But often what tends to happen is it typically gets siloed into operational workflows. It could get siloed into spreadsheets, which is point 2, but it effectively creates blockages in terms of interpreting the wider context of data. Especially on the spreadsheet side of things, more and more businesses rely on Excel spreadsheets predominantly to effectively manipulate the data into views or presentations, or pivoting the data into structures that effectively give that endpoint of readouts of information. Which kind of links into point 3, because once that manual manipulation has occurred, then what tends to happen is that data is fixed in time, or it might update via an ODBC driver connector, which may interpret further complications around pulling the data at frequency. But what tends to typically happen is the data is modeled in Excel. It then is fairly static to the point of time the data was pulled out and manipulated. It takes time to then get it to that point and then push that into some kind of view, which could be an overarching dashboard, a report, a weekly report, a month-end report, or a month-end reporting process. Now, to get to this point, it tends to take quite a lot of resource or time to get to this point. So whether that be a select few people reporting within the business that are the fulcrum of all the reporting requirements, tends to be that these people that are the ones that build the reports, and ultimately when it comes to getting ad hoc reports, they're the ones that have to then build out those reports and pull them away from their core functionalities and roles within the business. So what's Phocas there to do? So it's there to make sense of your data in a nutshell. So we all know that in this day and age that data comes in all forms, shapes and sizes. In this diagram, it kind of comes as the building blocks of every business. There's lots of it around. It's all different types of data across different business units, departments, etc. And it's quite vast. As businesses quickly scale, grow, change, dependent on various metrics, internal and external, the amount of data is not slowing down that businesses churn through daily. To then sort that data is the first key step, is sorting it into groups. So it could be sorting sales data, it could be sorting stock and inventory data, purchasing, accounts receivable. But once it's arranged, you start to see the wider picture of this bucket does this bucket does that. This is the responsibilities per department. And then it's easy to kind of start seeing the lay of the land and the way forward. Once that is arranged, it's quite easy to then interpret the data and present it visually. So you're not just looking at numerical data that's sorted in orders. It's much easier to see the wider context if that's put into a more visually appealing presentation. But then once it is set in that visually appealing presentation, you've got the building blocks all in place, the data's flowing through, and then it just makes it far easier to tell the wider picture of the story of what's going on within the business. Even with all the changes, even with all the additional challenges that come up, so it could be growth, it could be new product lines, it could be change of personnel, having that foundational workflow to still be able to tell the story from person to person, from department to department, from business unit to business unit, really helps drive business forward. And that's kind of the sense that Phocas presents in terms of its approach. So why have we got that approach? So just to kind of give you a scenario that tends to pop up, one scenario, I'll put a few scenarios in when we go through the demo itself, but one scenario that tends to come up is just around financial reporting, so the traditional financial reporting process. So Sage being at the heart of that, producing all the financial information, so all the journal postings, all the nominal codes, all the structures, all comes from the core data. So that's typically held by either, in most businesses, a financial controller or a CFO or finance manager doing split roles. And then their responsibility is to make sense of the numbers, to make sure all of the journals are up to date, all the sales accruals are done throughout the month, make sure the business is performing, and really are the heart of the reporting process. So in the traditional approach, it can be fairly locked down to just the financial controllers and the Office of Finance. So it means collaborating with the CEO, the CRO, the CMO may be fairly limited until certain key points within the month, such as a month-end reporting process or a board meeting. So it's only then, once you're going through month-end, you're doing the reports, getting the data out of Sage, pushing it into Excel, manipulating it to see how you're tracking throughout the course of the month. All of the time is typically spent within Office of Finance in that process of getting everything prepared for that board meeting or month-end report, or just the general reporting workflows in general. What tends to happen is that process happens every month. You get towards month end, you do your presentation, you put the board packs together, pieced it together with various tools, and then you may get a question from the CEO around, well, I just really want to know the growth of the business around X products, X warehouse, X location. And up until that point, you've presented, your EBITDA, your gross profit margins for the entire business, but not the wider context of the areas of the business, whether you break it down like cost center, department, product, etc. So it leaves the Office of Finance in a bit of a sticky situation where they need to get that information prepared and showcase at the back, but they don't have the time or resources to then ultimately feed that back at that point in time, which puts a lot of pressure on that personnel or personnels within that department. So the modern approach to business planning and analytics is it's more collaborative approach. So it's having data fed directly from Sage into Phocas, but then being able to dynamically build out the management reporting process into Phocas. So being able to have your P&L, your balance sheet, cash flow feeding directly into the system with the structures that you require. So that immediately takes away the fear of errors popping up, because you've exported it, manipulated it into a spreadsheet, and you're working through at a rapid pace. You might have a template in place, but if there's any changes, it's very difficult to keep it consistent. That's kind of taken away with Phocas, because the data syncs all the overnight, the standard, or when you rebuild the data, and then you know that the blueprint that you're working from is accurate. So that means that when you're going through the month and you're doing sales accruals, or you're doing analysis of, let's say, for example, your P&L, cost center analysis, departmental analysis, it's always accurate. So you're free to see what's up or what's down in terms of over and under budget accounts. You can then use tools like Phocas within Phocas to automate the reporting process. So if there's a set report that needs to be sent out to certain people within the business, the data sync in, you set the report up, you set the frequency of when it needs to go out, and then you know with confidence that everybody has been looped in and has that actionable insight at their fingertips at that point of time. So it's a very dynamic, collaborative approach to planning and analytics. All at the heart of it is still the same process that are going on into a day-to-day, but with the ability to automate it and save a lot of time. So what it effectively does is it moves the tradition, takes the best parts of the traditional approach with all the skill sets, the knowledge that's already within the business, but it just automates it and gives time back. So it moves Office of Finance away from manual operational reporting to performance analysis, in essence. So with Phocas, I'm going to cover, like I mentioned right at the start, I'm going to cover a range of products, but the products are geared towards better planning across the business. So across the Sage ecosystem, we connect to pretty much every single solution out there via Sage. So as you can see, we've got 50, 100, 200 intact X3. But the beauty of Phocas is it's not just one connection to a source, it's connection to everything. So you might have Sage 200, but you might have additional data sources for historic information or a specific area of operations that you might want to pull in. We can connect it all. We're a data agnostic solution, so that we can effectively blend in the commonality that links your data, and then whether it's fed into analytics, whether it's fed into your management accounts reporting, whether it's built into your budgeting process or whether you're processing hundreds or thousands of rebates, it's all in one solution, all with the same methodology, and makes it very easy for various roles within the business to collaborate and have the actionable insights at their fingertips. I mean, often comes up just from a role perspective, you see a CEO and board, they want to know, are we up? Are we down? How are we tracking? If you've got shareholders involved, similarly, they want to know, how are we tracking? If you've got investors involved, they want to know, well, how is the business tracking in terms of achieving our funding targets? CFOs just feel empowered because they know that the data is accurate. They can just performance analyze and just focus on driving the business forwards. Finance just have a more unburdened and agile approach to putting together things like just keeping track of the trial balance, seeing things like over and under budget. It could be just being in control of automating accounts receivable, accounts payable information. So being able to really whittle down your 30, 60 or 90 days outstanding. Sales really benefit from being able to have a really easy approach to get access to the data for the reports that they require. So it could be something as simple as the ad hoc reports that pop into sales teams' heads quite frequently could be, show me my top 10 customers, show me our top 10 products, show me where we've had customers drop off in the last 12 months, 3 months. All those type of questions can all be achieved within Phocas because they are designed to give you those insights within a couple of clicks. And then operations, kind of the glue that holds everything together. It's just that insightful direction on, well, it could be sales are getting more products out the door for a specific product category, but operations might want to know, well, actually, they've just sold X amount of units, but we have this amount of units on back order from a supplier at this price. Are we going to be able to fulfill the lead times, the orders with the lead times that we have? So it's a very collaborative approach that can be achieved with Phocas because all of this data from Sage is going to be housed within there so that it's very easy for teams to collaborate and get those actionable insights and plan that going forwards. So just to dive into some specific headline top functionality within the products itself. So starting off with analytics, you have all your, I kind of touched on it in the last slide, but you've got all your data in one place. So it's very easy for folks to connect into Sage and pull the data out and then effectively create the building blocks within Phocas. So it means that you can effectively set and forget reports. So you don't need to have to export the data to create a report every single time. You can set a report, the data flows in overnight, it then runs that scheduled report, and then it could either be a link into Phocas, it could be emailed out to you as a PDF, or you could present it as a dashboard as I come on to that. But the beauty of Phocas is that because we're effectively connecting from the source data, we're pre-querying the data in a giant cube, you can go any direction you want outside of the set and forget reports that you've already created. So you can ask any ad hoc question of the data and it's always going to show you the answer and show you the insight. So it's going to give you a really better understanding of what's going on within the business, as well as that wider context, along with your top 5, 10 reports that you probably are using already. It's going to give you the wider context of what's going on around that. So it enables you to tell a story in seconds. It could be a really simple one that a customer phones an account manager, and the account manager knows the account from the conversations they've had with the customer frequently, but being able to see things like the volume of sales they've done, the number of credits they've had, what their spend pattern has been across the portfolio, where the gaps are within a click, it makes it easier to have a deeper conversation with that customer and steer them in the right direction with all the actual insight at their fingertips. Which is the last point in terms of using the data back to make the right moves. But behind all of that is a really I suppose the thing that's not mentioned on there is that it's a really easy methodology to get all this information, and I'll show you this when we jump into the product itself. It's designed to be an enabler as a disabler, so that it's really easy to get the types of information that I've just described, which could take hours, if not weeks, depending on the operational processes in place. So on the financial statement side of things, it's about connecting people to performance. So it's a dynamic view of finance. So it's automating a lot of the manual reporting processes. It's finance on your terms. So often we tend to hear that the processes are in place to make things work. So this is flipping it on the head to say, well, you all will automate all of that stuff so that you can focus on the numbers. You can tell the story of what's going on within the business. You can look more at just what's the financials, the numbers. You can start to visualize and interpret that information. And then you can go any direction you want within that infrastructure, so that without fear of, I've not prepared that, I need to go away and prepare that, it's all there for you to then choose what you want to display or not display. But ultimately, the biggest one with Phocas financial statements is the time saved on the Office of Finance, because it removes that 40 to 60% of that manual reporting processes that are currently in place by the data just feeding into Phocas with the views and structures that you require, so that you're then free to then effectively analyze the data and focus on performance. So Phocas budgeting and forecasting, so it's all around getting everyone on the same page to effectively steer the business. So it kind of builds on both Phocas analytics, but also Phocas financial statements. The reason it was created was purely around customer-centric business intelligence budgeting, if that makes sense, because it's around taking the traditional methodology, similar to what I showed at the front of the presentation, but building in business intelligence into that process with the experience that we have. So it's around things like making the ever-changing nature of the business's budgeting process more dynamic. What we tend to hear is most businesses, rightly or wrongly, budget once a year. It could be for a multitude of reasons. It could be their budgeting process is simple. It could be because the budgeting process is so complex, they don't have the time to re-budget because it takes so long to get to the first budget or final budget or final budget in the first instance. So our Phocas budgeting and forecasting is designed to effectively build off the automation that you've already created from whether you're budgeting based on your P&L. It just pulls that data straight over from Phocas that's already in the financial statements. So you already got a head start on accurate data right from the start, but then it just builds in business intelligence into the process. So it connects everyone within the business that needs to be connected to the budget without having to have an infinite number of versions that are locked down, lines taken out, calculations removed, possibly broken, errors popping up in the same process. It does away with all of that, because effectively it's a live document that uses Phocas business intelligence to allocate lines out to certain stakeholders to then fill in those lines. And then it's a dynamic collaborative approach. So as you can see on the right, you can leave notes, you can submit lines back for verification from the budget stakeholders, you can sub-assign lines out, and then it just makes it much easier to see what's going on within the budgeting process, because you've got trending information, as you can see on the screen, in spark lines, but then it connects all workflows back within one central point, because it's all housed within Phocas. So once you've created a budget, you can then publish it back into the financial statements area or the analytics area if it's a sales budget based on revenue or quantity of products. It can then be cross-referenced back into the core system. So it's a very powerful tool, because it's not just focusing on budgeting based on, in this case example, we've got a three-way budget for P&L, balance sheet and cash flow. It could also just be a simple sales product budget based on products, customers, territories, etc. It's dynamic in that respect. But it's not just budgeting, as I mentioned, the change in sort of business environment is forcing businesses to revisit budgets in terms of forecasts. So it's not just a budgeting tool, it then takes the template that you've built out within the budgeting solution and effectively flips it into a forecast. So you have a really dynamic way of effectively looking at, right, at this point of the financial year, this is what we budgeted, this is what we had in our forecast at that point of time, and then effectively going month on month, you can slide that through and see your position as you're going through your financial year to date. And then because you can see your position throughout the financial year, let's say you're where are we? May, you've got January to December budget, and you would be looking to do your 6x6 or your 5+7s at this point. So you could then say, well, actually, we're above target by X percentage. We could either snap the remaining target evenly over the next 7 months, or we could follow seasonality, and this is where we're going to potentially end as a reforecast or forecast. So it's a very dynamic tool that enables you to do that, again, with the simple methodology and workflows built in, so that it's not going to trip you up at any hurdle. You're not having to reinvent the wheel in terms of learning how it operates, because it mixes and matches pretty much a lot of what's done in spreadsheets. And then it's then published back into the core focus areas, so you can effectively dynamically analyze the data. And then the rebates module. So what we hear with rebates is they are 9 out of 10 times all done within spreadsheets, and there are various rules based on certain customers, key accounts, product groups, volume of sales, quantity of sales. It could be down to territories and specific areas, and then it could be a parent or child relationship with certain suppliers. The long and short is there are lots of rules, there are lots of different rules in place for certain skills that then calculate a either B2C or B2B rebate with customers. It takes a lot of time, it can produce a lot of errors, and I mean, on estimate, it could be thousands that are lost in rebates, it could be millions that are lost in rebates, just down to simple things being missed. So what Phocas Rebates is designed to do is to automate that risk, so that you create rules around all of the aforementioned that I mentioned just now, and Phocas effectively runs these rules in the background based on the data that is already pulled in from Sage. So you've already got that consistency of knowing all the rules are running in the background and the data's being fed through on the front end, so that the analysis is happening at the same time. So it means that you can have a really fast ROI on the overall impact that the rebates are going to have on the business. So that could be for sales, driving more sales to say, actually, if you spend X amount more, you'll get a rebate of Y. Or it could be from a financial lens, it could be, sales are going to drive more sales for this specific supplier, so we're going to have a massive payout and a rebate, which is going to affect our cash flow going forwards. So just having this approach makes it far easier for everyone to have that visibility of what's going on within the rebates area of the business, which means that it makes it far easier to plan what's going on in terms of inflows and outflows. But ultimately, it's there to empower teams to have stronger conversations with traders or relationships or with customers or suppliers, because you're going to be providing a level of insight that often gets missed purely in the process of trying to create the rules and staying on top of the rules and managing the processes at the same time. So enough about the business, the products. I'm now going to show you very high level what that looks like from a use case perspective. So what I will do is I will share my screen. And then jump into the product. So what we can see here is just a dashboard to start with. Now, with Phocas, there's 3 layers of focus, 2 layers that are both the operational layers, and then there's an underlying layer which I'm not going to showcase today, but that's effectively the connection layer. With the connection layer, actually, it's probably worth me mentioning. So we're connected directly to all the Sage products. We pull out all the raw transaction data via our sync tool, our Phocas sync tool. It then goes into that 3rd layer of focus called the database designer. And then that's where we effectively layer in a solution that we know that 80 to 90% of our customers will see value from. And then that gets deployed fairly early into our implementation phase that enables us to then focus more on the customization, the specific reporting requirements throughout the validation of the data and the full implementation phase, which typically on average lasts about 8 to 10 weeks. From there, you've got there's 2 additional layers. So you've got the visualization layer, which is the dashboarding that we've got just here, and then we've got an underlying layer that sits underneath that called the grid, where you can then start to dive in and really drill into the wider context of what's going on within the business. Now, when I'm speaking to Sage businesses, there's kind of a 4-pillar structure of what they're looking for within an ideal solution. So top one that always comes up, whether you're looking at sales, inventory, purchasing, or finance, is being able to go from a wider helicopter view perspective of what's going on within the business right down to the inner depth and context of the reporting. Now, this is important because things change all the time within businesses, and being able to go from this view, for example, right down to what's going on in warehouse 5, within illumination, in healthcare at 10% margin, and all the transactions that sit within that is very powerful because it's going at different stages and steps. And I'll showcase a little bit of that in a minute. The second thing we tend to hear is around the ease of use. So being able to, for that same example, to get to that endpoint very quickly with minimal clicks and an easy process to follow is imperative, because if you can't do that, then no solution is going to get used, no matter how well it operates. The third area is around risk to customers. So along with being very good at being easy to use, it's got to be it's got to work very well to be implemented. So you don't want to have a long implementation cycle and have something that effectively might work outside the box once it's gone through that phase. You want something that's tried and tested and proven to last the duration of time that you're with that supplier. And then the last one is around future proofing. So effectively making sure that the version, you're not just getting one version of the product, you're getting a product that is constantly being invested in and evolving with all the changes and demands within the industry. They're the kind of 4 things I typically hear in terms of the ideal solution setup for customers. And what I'll do is I'll take you through high level how the product works, and I'll kind of show you snippets of how that links in with this. So right now, what we've got is we've got the visualization layer within Phocas. Now, this is a fictitious electrical wholesaler distribution business. Now, we're looking at a company performance dashboard where we've got our sales by product class, warehouse, customer type, and then margins as our top line widgets. All of these widgets are created from the second layer of focus, which is within the grid. So just to give you a quick example of that. So these, I'll come on to this shortly, but these are all driven by the dimensions within the grid. So we've just got product class selected, so we can see our product class breakdown. And then to turn that into a widget, it's just a case of hitting the chart builder button, and then Phocas will throw up the best ways to present the data. And then from there, I might want to just turn that from a donut back into a pie, because I prefer a pie, and then hit save. and then effectively it just updates a widget. That is the technical knowledge required to build a widget on a dashboard within Phocas. So with that in mind, it means that as we're going through this, we know that it's a simple process to create the widgets, but everything is pre-queried and pre-stitched together to create the commonality that links the data together. So when we start exploring the why behind these widgets, you'll see how it operates. But what we've got here, so we've got our sales by the various warehouse, product class, sectors, and margin. We've got our KPIs that indicate our sales versus budget variance, our sales budget percentage. Then we've got the value variance. Then we've got our profit variance percentage, and then we've got our profit variance as a figure as well. Then as we go down, we've got our performance over the financial year to date. So we can see things like our invoice net totals, we can see our gross invoice totals, our sales budget, number of credits, the actual profit we're making, and the variance to the budget in terms of a percentage. Now, as Phocas is effectively pulling in all the data, we can very easily just turn that into a monthly tracker of the same KPIs to see how we're tracking throughout the course of the month. But then we can also then start looking at sales trends versus margin, so we can see the wider picture of what's going on. We can even pull in budgets, so whether your budget's within our tool or an Excel spreadsheet, we can pull that in and layer that in so you can see how the sales is performing against targets and budgets as well. Then if you've got a rep structure within the business, you can then break down rep performance, so you can quite easily see who's above target, who's below target throughout the set period of time. We can also do that for customers, so we can see how customers are tracking over a period of time, so whether they're up or down. So we can see in this case, we're looking at slippage, so we can see all the customers that are down. We can also see where there's been increase, decrease, shrinking, or declining customers, and highlight that as an area to then go off and analyze very easily. I'll come up back to that shortly. We can then start pulling out other information. So we've got not just looking at sales information, we're looking at product performance as an area of concern. We can see our overall credits versus and returns ratio. So we can see what the lay of the land looks like in terms of the financial year to date. We can see our stock mix, so our overall stock mix in terms of what we've got stocked as a portfolio, but then equally we can then look at the quantity of dead stock, and I'll come on to this also shortly as well. Then we can see top 10 customers, top 10 products, our sales versus budget, and then because we can interpret postcode and address information, we can also do some heat mapping as well, so you can see what are your strongest areas in terms of location-based data as well. So I'll just scroll in, we can see in this map, it's around the north and also around the Midlands and London as well. But what makes this dashboard different to a lot of dashboarding tools out there is the ability to then start asking questions of the data. So I said right at the start, I said that I want to know what's going on in illumination. So if I hit focus, the whole infrastructure of everything I've showed you is now pointed at illumination as a category, and we can see all the KPIs have updated. I then mentioned warehouse 5. It's not the biggest warehouse, might change that to this warehouse. Look at warehouse 1, hit focus again, and then it's going to again drill in on that specific area. So illumination, warehouse 1, and then we'll look at healthcare as well. So as we're going through this process, Phocas is simply just updating to show the actual insights from the KPIs that we're looking at. So as we're scrolling through, everything is updated. Our monthly trackers, our financial year to date trackers, the customers, rep information, all of that information is updated as we're going through. So it means that any direction you are heading, going, Phocas keeps up and effectively just serves you the insight going back. So immediately, I would want to know, out of the 4 customers here who are declining, who are they, why are they declining, and how long have they been declining throughout the financial year to date. So with all of the widgets on this dashboard, every single element of this dashboard is analyzable. That's a word. So you just click this one just here, and it takes us from that visualization layer, still following our train of thought, and immediately, actually, it's done it for me before I've even had to think. Got those 4 customers. I can see when they were declining from, the specific points as well. But this layer is I suppose the USP of Phocas. It's the wider context of what's going on within the business. So I can see from here, all these grouping points on the left hand side are dimensions, and this is where I can then start to ask more further questions of the data. So for example, if I wanted to go and find out, well, we know this customer's been declining in warehouse 1 for healthcare and illumination, but I want to know right down to the SKUs, what's going on. So I simply just focus in on this one customer. I can then select the various dimensions to explore this. So I might want to know what products, what SKUs are in this decline of sales, and I've got every single SKU. I might want to look at, well, what territory do they belong to? Okay, it's part of Australia. What sales rep looks after them? It's Victoria. So we might have to get Victoria to reach out to this customer to find out why they've been declining in sales. Or it might just be something quite simple as, I want to know, let's have a look. Let's pick out February's transactions. So I just want to know what invoices were raised in February, and then with one click, I've got that information. So to my point around the sort of what customers tend to want from a solution, but that depth of reporting, it's going from that real high level visualization right down to the invoice transactional layer within 8 or 9 clicks, I think that was just there. Without fear of any barriers of getting to this point. It's very easy to do it. If I just reset the grid just here, I'm going to move on to another area, one eye on time. But the whole point of the product is it's all pre-queried. It's very easy to use, and you'll notice on my 4th point, it's a product that is always innovating and adding in functionality. So in terms of future-proofing the product and the investment that goes into it behind the scenes, we've got AI built in. So we now layered business intelligence with artificial intelligence. So let's say, for example, I'm new to the business. I've not had my Phocas training. I just want to know, show me 3 months, show me customers whose sales have declined over the last 6 months. Let AI go away and do its thing. It will have a think first, it will go through the data, and now it's produced that report over the last 6 months for all customers that have declined across the last 6 months. So not only has it created that report in seconds, it's also given you a breakdown of how it's got to that point as well. And that can quite easily be saved as a favorite. You can set conditional alerts up to say, only show me customers that have declined over 20% sales against budget or whatever metric, and that can then be set up to be automated and sent through as well. The other area that I wanted to showcase today was around, so I'm just going to move that because I can't see. Not stock, it would have been around financial statements. So just a really quick high level overview of this area. So Phocas is connected to your financial reporting. It's pulled out all of the general ledger nominal codes, general ledger transactions, journal postings into Phocas, and effectively you've got your P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, and trial balance within the product. But the beauty of having it here is it's got that direct link to Sage, but you can then build out the various management accounts reports however you want. Set the same structures that you would create within a manual work process within Excel, but with automation built in. Very simple methodology to get to this endpoint, but then to the point where you can then map out all of the account codes to their respective areas and even add in additional subcategories that don't exist in the source data. That way, every overnight refresh or when you rebuild the data, especially around month end, it's going to pull through the actuals into the structure that you require, freeing you up to then start analyzing the data, knowing that it's accurate. So you can start looking at your operating expenses and really see what's over and under a budget at that point. It then becomes very easy, because the data is pre-queried, to then, for example, to start to present that data to tell a story. So let's say, for example, I want to know, I've just set to show the statement to show all periods month on month within the statement, but I just want to see how it's trending. Are we up? Are we down? How does it look? So because we've just added in a simple couple of structures, we've added in the month on month view, I can see how we're trending year to date. I could have that as a bullet. I could have that as a gauge. I could have that as just a value card, or even a waterfall. And just tidy it up a little bit. So take out the 0 period. So it's very easy to present the data. This means that when you're in preparation for a month-end report or a board report or a shareholder report, you can consolidate a lot of this structures into a dynamic report that gives you the headline figures. You could have a multi-company structure. If you're doing multi-company consolidations, it can handle that. You might have multiple branches. But ultimately, what it enables you to do is, if you get asked, well, I want to know how this particular cost center company department is performing, rather than have to go away and build that structure manually, Phocas does all the heavy lifting, and in essence, it then will just point the data at those areas so that you're free to then walk through and talk this through at the same time. So just finishing up with a couple more slides and then questions. So why people choose Phocas? Hopefully you've kind of got a sense of how it works today from the demonstration and the earlier slides. But the main one really is around, it's really easy to use. It's directly connected to Sage, so you're always working from the actuals. Because it's so easy to use, it's very easy to spot opportunities or mitigate risks, because they will be flagged very early. Anybody can use the system, so you don't need to be a technical expert to drive Phocas. Even before AI, it's very easy to use, but as you can see, even if you find it tricky to start with, AI is there to effectively make it even easier for you. But that's all I wanted to cover today. If you do have any questions that you'd like more detailed answers, then just feel free to get in contact, scan the QR code, and I'd be more than happy to set up a personalized run through with you.